Finney's Systematic Theology, Chapter 2 on Moral Government, continued with what is implied in the right to govern. Number 1. From what has just been said, it must be evident that the right to govern implies the necessity of government as a means of securing an intrinsically valuable end. 2. Also that the right to govern implies the duty or obligation to govern. There can be no right in this case without corresponding obligation, for the right to govern is founded in the necessity of government, and the necessity of government imposes obligation to govern. 3. The right to govern implies obligation on the part of the subject to obey. It cannot be the right or duty of the governor to govern unless it is the duty of the subject to obey. The governor and subjects are alike dependent upon government as the indispensable means of promoting the highest good. The governor and the subject must, therefore, be under reciprocal obligation, the one to govern and the other to be governed or to obey. The one must seek to govern, the other must submit to be governed. 4. The right to govern implies the right and duty to dispense just and necessary rewards and punishments, distribute rewards proportioned to merit, and penalties proportioned to demerit, whenever the public interest demands their execution. 5. It implies obligation on the part of the subject cheerfully to acquiesce in any measure that may be necessary to secure the end of government, and in case of disobedience, to submit to merited punishment, and also, if necessary, to aid in the infliction of the penalty of law. 6. It implies obligation on the part both of the ruler and the ruled to be always ready, and when occasion arises, actually to make any personal and private sacrifice demanded by the higher public good, to cheerfully meet any emergency and exercise any degree of self-denial that can and will result in a good of greater value to the public than that sacrificed by the individual, or by any number of individuals. It always being understood that present voluntary sacrifices shall have an ultimate reward. 7. It implies the right and duty to employ any degree of force which is indispensable to the maintenance of order, the execution of wholesome laws, the suppression of insurrections, the punishment of rebels and disorganizers, and sustaining the supremacy of moral law. It is impossible that the right to govern should not imply this, and to deny this right is to deny the right to govern. Should an emergency occur in which a ruler had no right to use the indispensable means of securing order and the supremacy of law, the moment this emergency occurred, his right to govern would and must cease, for it is impossible that it should be his right to govern unless it be at the same time and for the same reason his duty to govern. And it is absurd to say that it is his right and duty to govern, and yet at the same time that he has no right to use the indispensable means of government. If it be asked whether an emergency like the one under consideration is possible, and if so, what might justly be regarded as such an emergency, I answer that should circumstances occur under which the sacrifice necessary to sustain would overbalance the good to be derived from the prevalence of government, this would create the emergency under consideration in which the right to govern would cease.